I was just helping her out. That's all it was supposed to be. It started on a rainy Tuesday evening outside a small grocery store. She was struggling with 2 heavy bags, her hands trembling slightly as cars rushed past without slowing down. Most people looked away. I almost did too. But something about the quiet determination on her face made me step forward. "Let me help you," I said. Her name was Margaret. She had silver hair neatly tied back, sharp blue eyes, and a warmth that felt strangely familiar. As we walked the 3 blocks to her apartment, she told me she used to be a schoolteacher. 40 years in the same classroom. "I've watched thousands of children grow up," she smiled. "But getting older, that's the lesson no one prepares you for." I began stopping by once a week. Fixing a leaky faucet. Changing light bulbs. Listening to her stories. What started as a simple favor slowly became something I looked forward to. Then one evening, as we sat across from each other at her tiny kitchen table, she looked at me with surprising seriousness and asked, "Would you ever marry a woman twice your age?" I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The room felt different after that. Quieter. Heavier. But in her eyes, I didn't see romance. I saw fear. Loneliness. A lifetime of independence meeting the reality of growing old alone. And in that moment, I realized, sometimes kindness opens doors you never expected, and asks questions you're not prepared to answer. I didn't answer her question right away. Instead, I poured us both another cup of tea and watched the steam curl into the warm, quiet kitchen air. Margaret studied me, as if reading every hesitation, every unspoken thought. "You don't have to answer," she said softly. "It's not about the question, really. It's about wondering if anyone still notices the little things about people my age." Her words hit harder than I expected. I thought I was helping her by carrying groceries or fixing faucets, but she was teaching me, too. About dignity. About being seen. About the quiet bravery of simply keeping going when the world seems to move too fast. Over the next few weeks, our friendship deepened. I began noticing the tiny details. How she always left a small plate of cookies for the mail carrier. How she never complained about aches or setbacks. How she hummed softly when she worked around her apartment. It wasn't the age difference that struck me anymore. It was the depth of her humanity. One Saturday, I arrived to find her sitting in the window, staring at the rain. "I used to think kindness was just about helping others," she said without turning. "But maybe it's about noticing them, really noticing them." I sat down beside her, and for the first time, I realized something profound. Our connection wasn't about marriage, or age, or expectation. It was about presence. The simple act of showing up mattered more than anything. And as I helped her carry another bag of groceries later that day, I understood why some of the smallest gestures leave the biggest impact. She didn't need me to answer her question, not yet. She needed me to listen, to care, to show that someone still sees her. Sometimes, the heart opens in unexpected ways, not because of grand declarations, but because of quiet, consistent kindness. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Margaret called me in the middle of a Thursday afternoon. Her voice was urgent, almost panicked. "Could you come over? I think I've locked myself out." I grabbed my jacket and keys, running through the drizzle to her apartment. When I arrived, she was sitting on the stoop, knees hugged to her chest, looking unusually small in the vast gray afternoon. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "It's silly, but I just panicked." I laughed softly. "Not silly at all," I said, kneeling beside her. "Happens to everyone." As I picked the lock and opened the door, she sighed in relief and invited me in for tea. But something had shifted. The vulnerability in her eyes was different this time, more raw, more fragile. She confessed that sometimes, even with all her independence, she felt invisible. That evening, as we sat across from each other, I realized just how much she had been carrying alone. I wanted to say something that could erase that loneliness, but words felt inadequate. So I did the next best thing, I listened. And in listening, I discovered something unexpected. She began sharing stories she had never told anyone, moments of regret, moments of joy, and even small secrets she thought she had forgotten. By the time I left, the rain had stopped, and a sliver of sunlight touched the city streets. Margaret waved from her doorway, smiling softly. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no grand declaration, but it was real. That night, I realized kindness isn't just about doing things for people. It's about being there when life suddenly feels heavy, about creating space for someone to exist fully, without judgment. And in her quiet gratitude, I understood that the simple act of showing up could heal more than I ever imagined. Sometimes, helping someone else out becomes the most meaningful journey, for both of you. Weeks passed, and our routine became something I didn't realize I'd begun to rely on. Saturday mornings were our sacred time, me helping with small chores, her telling stories over tea, the quiet companionship filling the room like sunlight. Then one afternoon, as we sat in her living room listening to an old record, she turned to me with a mischievous smile. "Do you remember the question you didn't answer?" I froze for a moment, feeling a familiar weight. "Yes," I said carefully. "I've been thinking about it," she said, her voice lighter now, almost teasing. "Not because I want an answer, but because I wanted to see if you think about me at all, the way I think about you." Her words caught me off guard. I realized that what had started as simple kindness had grown into something more, something neither of us had named. The connection between us was no longer just about helping or being helped. It was about presence, trust, and the rare comfort of being understood. I laughed, nervously at first, then sincerely. "You really know how to surprise a person, Margaret." She winked. "I've had practice. Life's too short not to surprise people sometimes." That evening, as I walked home, I reflected on how unexpected our friendship had become. I came to help her with groceries, with minor repairs, and maybe a listening ear. But along the way, I had received something far greater, a lesson in patience, humility, and the quiet power of human connection. And I realized the truth: kindness doesn't always lead to grand gestures or obvious rewards. Sometimes it leads to something far subtler and far more profound, the understanding that showing up, consistently, with genuine care, can transform lives. By the time I reached my apartment, the city lights flickered like 1,000 tiny affirmations, that even the smallest acts, repeated with sincerity, ripple outward in ways we never expect. One evening, a few months later, Margaret invited me to sit on her balcony. The city stretched below us, glowing in the golden light of sunset. She handed me a small notebook, worn at the edges. "I've been keeping a journal," she said. "I wanted to write down every memory, every little act of kindness I've experienced. And, of course, the biggest surprise of all, you." I felt my chest tighten. There, on the page, were words I could never have imagined: gratitude, humor, warmth, and an honest reflection of the connection we had built. "I never thought someone would notice me like this," she whispered. "Not just the surface stuff, but really see me. And somehow, through your kindness, I feel lighter, happier, less alone." For a moment, I struggled for words. Then I realized this was what mattered: the human impact of showing up, of being present. It wasn't about age, or expectations, or what society thinks. It was about care, consistency, and the courage to open your heart. We sat in silence, letting the city hum around us. And in that quiet, I understood something profound. Life isn't about grand gestures. It's about the simple choices we make every day, to help, to listen, to notice, to care. Margaret smiled, her eyes shining. "Thank you for everything. Not just the help, but for seeing me." I smiled back, feeling a warmth that words couldn't capture. "And thank you for reminding me what it truly means to be human." That night, I walked home with a heart fuller than I had ever expected. Sometimes, kindness doesn't just change someone else's life, it changes yours too. And sometimes, the smallest gestures leave the largest marks, echoing long after the moment has passed. In helping her, I had discovered the power of compassion, connection, and the beauty of being truly present. And that, I realized, is a gift worth giving every day.